a really weird thing happened during the week that Phil Spencer actually appeared on this very, I'll give it clever talk show, which uses Animal Crossing as a set. So, people dial in from a COVID perspective, everyone's dialing into these sessions anyway. So the whole backdrop is Animal Crossing. And yeah, he decided he wanted to appear on this talk show, Animal Talking. And yeah, as you pointed out, he actually discussed whether they should split it up. So I didn't actually hear the discussion. Was it like split up the multiplayer? Is that what it was coming from?
Yeah, look, that's my takeaway from it. Similar to, I mean, Call of Duty has played around with this idea before. I mean, it's common these days, but it gets a lot of backlash. Street Fighter Five as well released. Only started, I guess, very bare bones and adding to it. And to me, like that, it would have, if you're gonna ever do that, it would have made sense to launch with the multiplayer component and then do the campaign after that, because essentially I think if you launch with the campaign first, people I think more people would miss the multiplayer than miss the campaign in regards to like overall in that sense,
Yeah.
if I'm making sense myself.
Yeah.
But he said that no, they decided against it, and I can kind of understand, because then it's almost like, well, this is a lesser Halo experience than the previous games, and this is meant to be like, this is meant to be the best Halo ever. Every new Halo should be positioned as the best Halo ever, um, and especially one that's kind of like launching with a new console, or was launching for new console. So, but just the whole fact that Phil Spencer was on an Animal Crossing talk show is just absolutely bizarre to me, and it just it's just like, that's like a little microcosm of where everything's at in the industry. Just Phil Spencer's always been really open, and talking about how much he loves Nintendo and things like that. And
Yeah.
obviously, Nintendo and Microsoft have worked quite closely in recent years as well, which is huge. But just the fact that you've got the head of Xbox on an Animal Crossing talk show, obviously not sponsored by Nintendo or backed by Nintendo, but it's still just really weird to me. I just love it.
Yeah. But still on a exclusive, right? On Nintendo, like Animal Crossing. It's synonymous with Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's the only place you
Oh
can
yeah.
play it ever. So look, it's one of those ones with how bizarre this year has been. This is like a top 10 weird things of 2018 if it happened then. Whereas like this year it's like oh yeah, so the guy who runs Xbox, he appeared in an Animal Crossing talk show. Like it's
And
weird, but
he also shared the virtual couch with Lisa Loeb, and I'm like, I'd forgotten all about Lisa Loeb. Do you remember
so
Lisa
have I.
Loeb?
No, I've forgotten about it totally. I do recognize the name. Who's Lisa Loeb again?
Lisa Loeb, she's a musician. So
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, I swear she was like late '90s or early 2000s. But yeah, I was just like, wow, that what a random two guests to have on this talk show at
Oh,
the
yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
time.
I do
So
know. Yeah, Stay. That's so weird. That's so odd. Like, that's a weird, like, booking. Like, why would you just have Phil Spencer on as a special, right? Like, anyway.
uh,
But yeah,
look,
like,
I maybe she's a regular guest. We don't know, mate. But anyway, but it's just a weird little story. But obviously, he did kind of discuss Halo a bit, and I don't know if, I think that may have been his first, potentially his first public comments about after they announced the leak, like
yeah, it
a couple of
was.
days earlier. But yeah,
No, it was because I did see that news and I thought, what? Like, Phil Spencer's commenting this through Animal Crossing? I was like, what am I reading? Like, this
yeah.
is weird. But like, so I didn't. I'm not sure if I knew. I took away what your view was. Do you think that they should have launched with a multiplayer only version, kind of going, "Hey, sorry, we wanted to give you some kind of Halo experience. It's not ideal, but better than having nothing." So, or do you think you agree with where they came from and delayed the whole thing?
I agree with delaying the whole thing. I
That's
just think
interesting.
it'll overall end up being a better game for it. And we saw it with Cyberpunk this year. We saw it with a whole bunch of other games, including Avengers got pushed back multiple times. We're about to talk about another game. It's not on that scale, but it's also been pushed back. The games need to be delayed sometimes,
Yeah.
and as much as people complain about it, a lot of those people that complain probably wouldn't have even bought it when it first launched. They probably would have waited months for it to go cheap. They're just like complaining about things. But it sucks for people that are obviously super excited and had pre-orders and everything. I'm not going to say that it doesn't suck.
So, like, I mean, the final thing I just wanted to say about this delay before we get on to another delay is just I actually wish they did release the multiplayer version only. And you know how I would have done it? It would have been like, look, we could have done it either way. We could have released the multiplayer or like pushed it back. But what we want to do is release the multiplayer, make that digital only. So, not have the physical stuff out in the stores because we want to make sure that when you get that physical version, it's got the campaign and the multiplayer on it and it is free to play. And we're going to go even further. We're going to say it's free to play. You don't even need Xbox Live. Like, because you currently do need Xbox Live to play it for free with the multiplayer when they release that. Like, we're going to remove that as well, just as a sort of a gesture to say, you know what, obviously this is not ideal, but we want to give you some Halo experience over the holiday. We know it's been a tough year, right? Like, I don't
Yeah,
see a loss there for me personally.
I wonder if, because obviously they're working on the multiplayer, now as well as the campaign. But I wonder if there's a whole bunch of multiplayer maps that are based in the story locations as well. And that's a
Hmm.
small thing, but that has happened in
Maybe.
previous games. Now, sometimes they'll be
True.
completely random maps, but it's more even like I think visually they will obviously reuse textures and the general locations and I guess the what's the sky map or whatever they call it, like the
Oh, yeah, yeah,
backgrounds and
yeah.
things. And you're like, wait, why are we looking at this location? Why can we see this? And that's an easy thing to work around because they can just probably just reskin stuff if they want to do that. But yeah, it's interesting. I think the fact that, and you just mentioned it, I've completely forgotten that the multiplayer is free to play. That throws a big spanner in the works of how you think about this in some ways because you want to make sure that people buy this game that aren't on Game Pass, and suddenly the fact that they've launched the multiplayer first, people are like, well, the only place we can get it is free to play, and that's all I ever care about. You maybe you'll lose some sales there, but it's interesting, and I think that we will kind of probably almost forget that it was originally meant to be a launch title in 5 years. It'll just be, oh, Halo came out. I reckon it'll probably end up coming out probably in Feb around that timeline, which is not that long after when you think
Yeah,
about the
because we didn't talk
generation.
about that. I reckon it'd be longer. I think it's more like a March, April game. Just because, why would you delay it only 2 months? Normally these things get delayed a little bit more than that.
We'll see. We'll see what they
Hmm.
end up moving it to.
No, fair enough.